Hey guys, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in today's video we're going to enjoy the view and we're going to talk about music and other forms of entertainment in regards to prepping for grid down, bug in, or SHTF. Now, this is something that I asked some of you guys about in a past video, and this is the follow-up video for that. I got a lot of good feedback from you guys, and after sharing my thoughts on music and entertainment for preppers, I'm going to share some of yours. So, music plays a big part of my life. I listen to a lot of music, and I use it to help regulate my mood. Now, some of you may not understand that, but plenty of you will. Our mood and our natural bodily rhythms can be strongly affected by music, and I, for one, am one of those people who uses music for this purpose. Now, I have fought depression and other emotional problems in different parts of my life, and I have noticed that sometimes listening to sad songs can help my mood or it can worsen my depression. And the same thing goes for upbeat music. Sometimes I can't stand it, and sometimes it really helps me. So through this, I've noticed that music can have a strong effect on your life. And some people even say that any music besides hymns can let bad spirits into your life, so you should avoid it. Now, I don't necessarily hold with that, but I do strongly believe that the social influences that you choose to intake can have a strong effect on you, your mood, and your mindset. And so I think it's very important to be very conscious of not only the music, but the other kinds of influences like who you listen to or watch and who you let influence your life, and see how they're affecting you and your frame of mind. So I think that music can have a powerful effect on morale. And while in a lot of situations it might be dangerous to listen to music, for instance, if it's just a very dangerous circumstances in the world that you're in, it will often probably be okay for at least some people at some parts of the day to have headphones in, or perhaps even to have barn dances. And in that note, the person who's able to provide classics, and in that vein, that would be anything that's playing on the radio even today, could likely be a very popular or even wealthy person, especially if they're able to reproduce digital or physical copies of music, movies, books, or other valuable information. So in that vein, I do think that it is valuable to store music, movies, and books in various forms, and I plan on doing so and already do so myself. Now, we'll get to that again in a second, especially because Bug Out Bubba shared the way that he has stored some digital media for himself. But first, I'm going to share some of the things that you guys shared in regards to music and books that you think you would miss or just suggest to others. Now, this is by no means a complete list. I really just went through and grabbed a few that popped out to my eye from each comment. But I'll put a link to that video in the description box down below. And if you guys really want to get into looking at what some of my viewers suggested for books or music that they like, you can go there and look in the comment section and see what some of you guys thought. But in no particular order, we have sometimes citing who wrote it and sometimes not. Sorry guys, I just really did a hodgepodge on this one, going through the comments and just writing some of this stuff down. We have 1980s metal hair bands, adventure books, classic books, which I think would just be the ones that, teenagers or high schoolers and middle schoolers would be reading, and also medical literature. Uncle Al says that at one point he lost his prepper library to a fire, but it had cooking, food prep, history, warfare, combat, soldiers' rations, camping, and hunting books, etc., and that some of the music that he would miss would be light jazz, classic music, and rock from 66 to 76. Some other book suggestions from others were the World Encyclopedia, Popular Mechanics magazines, and Outdoorsman magazines. The Bible. Somebody else mentioned the difference between MP3 originals and the degradation of those files. And something that the Watchman News, that's Mike over there, suggested to me was using FLAC, F-L-A-C files, which are free lossless files that will be able to reproduce MP3s without losing anything in compression. I won't say who, but one of you said you would miss me and Pornhub mostly, and that made me very uncomfortable. Anyways, we have a suggestion from Doug here of, I think it was Doug, Led Zeppelin's 4 album, Copeland's Lincoln Portrait, both of which are very good. And for fictional books, Fahrenheit 451 and John Knowles' A Separate Piece, Our Town by Thornton Wilder, and for nonfiction, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, Space, Time, and Architecture by Siegfried Gaidin. Belgian Prepper's music list includes things like Eminem, which I have no problem with, to be honest. It's actually better than a lot of rap. Techno, Rammstein, Pantera, AC/DC, Boston, Megadeth, Kiss, ZZ Top, Bachman-Turner Overdrive, Drowning Pool, Disturbed, Marilyn Manson, Slipknot, System of a Down, Pixies, The Who, and Dire Straits, among others, just from playlists on his page that he said he enjoys. We have Imagine Dragons and Talk Radio. Now, Talk Radio is decent. There are a lot of things that you can store besides just contemporary talk radio, just like lectures and various things on CD and digital format that will let you listen to other people and their opinions on valuable things far in the future, completely separate from just your average radio talk show host. But most of them do save their shows in podcast format, and sometimes you can get whole blocks of them for free. So that might be a decent thing to download if you have somebody that you like to listen to. That might be a pretty comforting thing a few years down the road if you have the free time and you have a minute for nostalgia just to go listen to Rush Limbaugh or whoever it is for you. Anyways, we have for fictional books, Ellie Modesitt Jr. and Wise and Hickman. We have the Fionavar Tapestry by GGK. We also have a great suggestion that mirrors my own for The Stand and the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and just many of his works. So to talk about what Bug Out Bubba does to store some digital things, he buried a barrel with 2 DVD and Blu-ray players, a small TV, additional solar panels, a charge controller, and an inverter. He has a huge collection of how-to books regarding homestead-related subjects and yard games, playing cards, and board games for SHTF. Now, something that he noted about his barrel that he buried full of electronics, he does believe that if it's properly insulated on the inside and sealed, that the ground itself will be a great protection from an EMP or CME type event. And I can't really argue with that. I have heard that the ground can act as an antenna in a very powerful event, but if you're properly insulated from that, you should be fine. And I think that that's a very good way to add an extra layer of protection to your Faraday cage objects is simply to bury them, because that's free storage space, mostly free. Bug Out Bubba says that he thinks a world in chaos may be much less exciting than most believe it to be, at least for those who have put themselves in a safe place. We also have some suggestions of To Kill a Mockingbird, Jane Austen, Louis L'Amour, Dean Koontz, Agatha Christie, and free Reader's Digest books, puzzle books, and a bookshelf of SHTF reading books, all from Anna Lee Brown. Just a list of things that she likes and that she enjoys on a regular basis. So just some of my suggestions, my things that I enjoy, music that I would miss. I really enjoy Tool, Perfect Circle, classical music, some upbeat stuff every once in a while, like Fleetwood Mac, Hall & Oates, Slightly Stoopid. Everyday Astronaut is a YouTuber here on YouTube. He's pretty darn active. He goes to space launches and various things like that, flight museums. He's a really cool guy, and he brings aeronautics and space flight down to an everyday person's level. He also has a really good album under the name Everyday Astronaut that I like to listen to a lot. It's instrumental music that's mostly upbeat and just really catchy. I like to work to it and just listen to it every once in a while. Michael Jackson tends to be pretty upbeat. I like his stuff. It's sort of classic. I also enjoy things like Disturbed, Metallica, and just a wide variety of other music, which I will put in the description down below as I did last time. Now, I also think that aside from music and books, storytelling will be a very enjoyable thing in a lot of grid down situations. I think that it's something that we've gotten away from in our modern age, at least in the Western world. But if you've ever worked out in the field or just spent time out in the woods camping with people, you end up just telling stories, things that come up and are relevant to what you're talking about, or just going around and telling a story that somebody else's story made you think of. And I think that if you're in a grid down situation where you are especially bugging in and just stuck in small confined spaces with the same people for long periods of time, doing those kinds of things that kill a lot of time and increase social bonding will be a very good thing. And in some cases, it may be the only way that we can relate information to other people when we don't have the internet to simply go show them a video of it. Or in long-term situations, the only way to teach children about the way things used to be or certain experiences that we want to convey to them but have no other way of illustrating. So I think storytelling will be very valuable, and it might be worth to you guys when you watch movies or experience things nowadays to try to remember them from a storytelling point of view so that you might be able to relate them to people even far in the future. Now, in the vein of long-term bugging in type situations, there are a lot of different ways that one can burn long periods of time that don't necessarily have to do with listening to music or reading books, both of which, after a good long chunk of time doing that, and I'm talking about even weeks of just reading straight, you may get tired of doing. Sometimes you just can't read any longer if that's all you've been doing for weeks. So it's very good to have other ways to entertain yourself, especially ways that will take up huge chunks of time without you realizing it. And so things like board games or puzzles or card games or even video games in some situations, if they're available to you, can be very good ways to keep morale up by distracting and entertaining people for huge chunks of time. Puzzles and board games and tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons, if that's the kind of thing that you're into, or other formats of paper and pencil games, can eat up huge chunks of time in groups so that people are getting social bonding benefits as well as engaging their minds in interesting ways and keeping them entertained and not focusing on the big chunks of time that they're trying to burn up without the ability to go outside or do other forms of entertainment. And for that reason, other things like card games, and not just card games with your regular 52 card deck, but also things like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon card games, which, as dorky as it may seem, can be very entertaining and eat up dozens and dozens of hours spread across days for entire groups of people as they play out a very long card game. Try to think of the longest Monopoly match that you've ever heard of. And for this reason, things like video games can also be very beneficial, especially ones where groups can play together, like party or arcade mixes, and also group RPGs with open worlds that you can spend dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of hours exploring and playing with as they change constantly. And also sandbox games like Minecraft, which are specifically built so that you can build infinite worlds inside of them. That's something that I plan on sharing in the future. Anyways, I hope that this has been interesting and gotten you guys thinking about some of the different ways that entertainment can play a role in your life, in grid down or in the future. Something that I didn't even get into yet is the importance of preserving culture in long-term loss of society situations. Anyways, I hope that was interesting, and I hope it didn't get too windy here to let you guys watch this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you're all doing well. Everybody stay safe out there.